January. I'm sure that he will have one of his fans doing that. But yes, all eyes will be on that, on whether or not Gaza holds. And I think, the committee quite often tries to, in a sense, shift the spotlight a little bit to show that, yes, all the noise at the moment might be about Gaza and Ukraine. What they've done today is just remind people of the cause of Venezuela, and in that way they'll feel it's mission accomplished.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's just show you the scene in Gaza now as tens of thousands of Palestinians there head back to their homes because that ceasefire now is in place. You're watching BBC News. Hello again, this is BBC News with me, Ben Brown. A quick reminder of our latest headlines. And thousands of Palestinians in Gaza who've been displaced by the war there are now returning to the north of the territory and to try to find what is left of their homes. That's after Israel said that a new ceasefire is now in effect. Hamas, meanwhile, is expected to release all its hostages by noon local time on Monday, as Israel publishes a list of 250 Palestinians to be released from its jails in exchange. Venezuela's opposition leader has won this year's Nobel Peace Prize. The White House has criticised the prize committee, saying it should have gone to President Donald Trump.
The hardest thing is we would have been okay. You're okay.
And Prince William is clearly emotional as he reconnects with a woman whose husband took his own life. He's launching a national suicide prevention network with the Princess of Wales. And one other story, the green turtle bounces back from the brink of extinction in what scientists say is a major conservation victory. Well, let's show you once again the scene live then in Gaza, and we have been watching for several hours now a steady stream of people, Palestinians, walking along that narrow road in the Gaza Strip along the coast back to Gaza City, which had been under that ferocious Israeli bombardment. But now there's a ceasefire. They are going back to their homes, or what is left of their homes. And the Israeli military has posted on social media that the ceasefire agreement ratified by the government on Thursday evening came into effect at midday local time. That's a few hours ago. Now, it said its troops are positioning themselves along the updated deployment lines under the ceasefire agreement. BBC Verify has been examining videos showing Israeli troops pulling back and what it all means for those Palestinians who are returning home. Merlin Thomas has more details.
Israeli troops have been withdrawing from Gaza on Friday morning, and we've been verifying video circulating on social media like this, showing tanks and heavy machinery approaching and crossing the western Erez, which is located on the Gaza Strip's northern border. Now, to recap, this is President Trump's latest plan for the first stage of Israeli troop withdrawal. You can see that here in these yellow lines. Now, it would mean Israel would still control about 55% of Gaza. Israel has already sliced the Gaza Strip into different military corridors, as you can see here in these red lines. Now, these are militarized zones and are used by the army for access to move across Gaza. In some places, you can see that the White House plan roughly matches up with some existing boundaries created by the Israeli military. It's worth emphasizing this is the latest map, but we don't know how closely this corresponds to what was finally agreed, and that will be crucial to what happens to Israeli troops on the ground. Now, Palestinians will have the chance to return home to northern Gaza, where they were ordered to flee. But what's left for them to return to? Israel has destroyed swathes of the Strip. Whole neighborhoods in Gaza City have been wiped off the map. For now, Palestinians and Israelis will be waiting anxiously in the hopes that the ceasefire agreement holds.
Well, will it hold? That is the key question. That's Merlin Thomas reporting. But let's talk to Mikey Kay, former British military strategist and expert analyst on the BBC's Security Brief programme. Mikey, that's the question. I mean, we're into the very early hours of this ceasefire. It's got a long way to go, multiple phases and stages. So far, so good. But what do you see as the sort of perils ahead, potentially?
Yeah, I mean, Ben, the next 72 hours is an incredibly delicate window for both parties. Hamas has until midday local on Monday. I think we've got actually a map which shows the yellow line, if we could just bring that up, in terms of where the IDF are pulling back to. And you can see on the graphic there, Ben, the yellow line, it's quite a significant area that they have to pull back from. And while they're doing that, you know, the IDF are going to be on edge. When it comes to rules of engagement, I've deployed in Afghanistan, Iraq, Kosovo, Northern Ireland. You know, rules of engagement are a cigarette paper thin decision between getting something right and getting something wrong. And if they get something wrong, and bearing in mind the tolerance of the IDF for collateral damage, if they get something wrong, it could torpedo the process. Now, I think we've got another graphic of a map as to where the current locations, or the recently current locations of the IDF have been. Now, when you cross-contrast that, the yellow line with that's significant movements of IDF personnel pulling back from their frontline locations. Contrast that that then with, as you were speaking about earlier, the huge displacement of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Gazans who are now trying to go back and identify where their homes were. And I say were because 92% of homes have been destroyed since October the 7th. Now, they're going to go back and they're going to find rubble. And importantly, what we call in the military, which is UXO, unexploded ordnance, there's going to be a lot of unexploded ordnance in those areas, which is going to be massively unsafe. There's going to be no food or running water. There's going to be no sanitation. And these are all conditions that create massive instability, internal instability, within huge migrations of populations.
We talked about the IDF there. What are the Israeli Defense Forces? What about Hamas? Because part of this plan in the longer term, which Hamas haven't really talked about, but they're supposed to disarm. Now, what are the chances of that, and who's going to monitor that disarmament process?
The only legal framework that I'm aware of, and I was actually on an operation in Macedonia in 2001 called Operation Essential Harvest, was called DDR, which is Disarm, Demobilize and Reintegrate, which basically is setting up weapons points where militia can come in, drop their weapons off, and then they are assisted back into civilian life with their dependents. That obviously requires trust on both parties, but that's the only legal framework that I can identify at the moment. But that requires stability, not just on the ground level tactically, but at the political levels as well, with that sort of security stability for allowment of those things to happen. And again, go back to trust.
Just finally and briefly, I mean, we saw in the hours counting down to the ceasefire coming actually into effect, which was obviously an amazing day and an amazing moment for Gaza. But right up until the last minute, the Israeli military were attacking targets in Gaza, weren't they? And we saw more and more airstrikes. So they were using almost every conceivable minute before the ceasefire came into effect to keep on bombing.
Yeah, a significant amount of that military activity was demolitions. Some were airstrikes. But what the IDF have been doing is under the pretense of what the IDF is saying, which is a lot of the infrastructure is being used for military assets by Hamas. There have been airstrikes going in, there have been controlled demolitions, but there's also been a really interesting concept of operation, we call it a CONOP in the military, where the IDF have been using APCs, armoured personnel carriers, which are old, obsolete. They've been filling them up with explosives and then remotely putting them into areas and blowing them up next to high-rise buildings, for example. Now, the IDF are saying that those high-rise buildings are being used as command centres or OPs, observation posts, as we call them in the military. But actually, when you look at the statistics of 60% of buildings that have been destroyed, 92% of homes that have been destroyed, I would be very curious to look at the intelligence that the IDF were using to substantiate those claims.
Mikey, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. You can hear more analysis from Mikey on the security brief later on the BBC News channel. In the meantime, let's talk to the writer and former Israeli diplomat, Alon Pinkas, who joins us now. And Alon, thank you very much for your time. Is this a ceasefire agreement that you think can work and can hold, not just in this first phase, but in its later phases too?
No, unfortunately not, Ben, and I'm sorry to say that. Mikey described before me expertly what could go wrong. And with the missing ingredients that he also mentioned, trust, the ability to verify, and goodwill, all of which are conspicuously absent, the explosiveness of the situation, the fragility is such that I don't see this going on. Now, here's why. To begin with, to be somewhat optimistic about this, the first phase will probably go on smoothly, meaning that the next 72 hours in which the Hamas is releasing the 20 Israeli hostages who are alive and hopefully all of the 28 bodies of those who have been killed or murdered. And in exchange, Israel is returning Palestinian prisoners. That'll probably go on smoothly. The Israeli redeployment, although not complete and full as the agreement would mandate, but it is sufficient to allow for this to happen. But what remains, even before the next phases that you just alluded to, is Hamas's disarmament. I don't see them disarming. And the chances of a miscalculation, a skirmish, a bad reaction, a misunderstanding is huge. You know, there is something called, I'm sure Mikey, who's not with us now, knows the term. It's called the strategic. The strategic corporal, meaning that there's a corporal out there who's scared. He's 19 years old. He wants to go home. He thinks it's all over. He's being shot at because he's scared, because it's uncertain, because he doesn't know what's going on. He starts shooting back like crazy. Before you know it, there's a skirmish, and the ripple effect creates the complete breakdown of the ceasefire, and you have a strategic event just because of that one frightened corporal. And so that's why I think practically the next phases are extraordinarily difficult to implement. That's on the tactical ground level. Then there's the political level, but that depends on your questions.
Well, my question actually on that was on the political level. Donald Trump is hugely invested in making this work, isn't he? And you know, people are saying he's bullied Netanyahu into this agreement, this ceasefire agreement. But surely he's going to see it through, isn't he? Or he's going to try to. Donald Trump is going to put so much pressure on the Israeli side, at least, to make sure this does stick.
I'm not sure about that. Yes, he bullied Netanyahu. Yes, he coerced Netanyahu into this. Yes, he cornered him into endorsing this publicly, by the way. That there's a big, people overlook this. The fact that he made Netanyahu stand up and endorse it last week at the White House in Washington, that he made Netanyahu stand up and publicly endorse this rather than give him his word or his pledge or his consent in the closed room, which Trump's learning curve has taught him won't happen, meaning Netanyahu's credibility is such that you have to make him say this publicly. But, you know, the accolades, the praise, the compliments, they're done once phase one is over. The hostages are back. Everyone is thanking Trump. Everyone is crediting Trump. Everyone says, like you and I right now, it was his bullying, it was his investment, it was his engagement, it was his commitment. But the next phases are almost intractable. They are very difficult, they are ambiguous, they are tedious. It's going to take time. There are no accolades here. There are no compliments, and we all know what his attention span is like. And so I think you just raised the most important question of them all, Ben. And that is, will he remain committed? And unfortunately, based on precedent, look at Ukraine, for example, I just don't see that happening.
Well, we shall see. Thank you so much for being with us. That's the writer and former Israeli diplomat Alon Pinkas. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Now, we'll have much more to come, but around the world and across the United Kingdom, you are watching BBC News. Now, one child has been killed and at least 20 people have been injured in a wave of Russian drone and missile attacks on Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky said more than 450 Russian drones and about 30 missiles have been used in strikes on electrical, water and gas infrastructure in the capital Kyiv and other cities as well. 9 regions of the country have suffered power cuts as a result of those attacks. Mr. Zelensky called on Western powers to deliver more air defence systems to Ukraine and to impose tougher sanctions on Russia as well. Our correspondent Gary O'Donoghue is in Kyiv and gave us the latest about those Russian attacks.
It was a pretty heavy night, to be honest, for Ukraine. Up to around 500 separate projectiles fired at the country, a mixture, as you say, of drones, mainly drones, but also ballistic and cruise missiles and other rockets fired into all sorts of areas, including Kyiv, which has been reasonably quiet for the last few days. I certainly heard drones overhead last night and the anti-aircraft fire trying to take them out. There's been widespread outages of power and electricity and water, as you mentioned. In Poltava, maybe around 200,000 people lost power there. Some people lost power here in Kyiv, and also water supplies, particularly in the centre. Even the main government building and the parliament building seem to have lost water at one point today. They could be seen having portable lavatories and bottled water delivered there. So you can see that this is an attack on infrastructure, and particularly a attack on the power grid, power generation, because of course the winter months are coming, and that will be a sort of crucial part of getting Ukraine through the winter. As you mentioned, one child, a 7-year-old boy, was killed actually in Zaporizhia. And a neighbour spoke to local media there and said that the boy's father had only just recently returned as a prisoner of war from where he'd been a prisoner of war in Russia for 3 years, only just come back, and may have lost one or both of his legs in the explosion as well. The front lines have stayed pretty static in the last few months. They ebb and flow to some degree, particularly obviously in the east, and Russia continues to attack in the north as well. But there have been no, this great summer offensive that Russia promised hasn't produced what they hoped or expected it would. There are new types of drones being used, longer range drones, and that really feeds into this attack really on the infrastructure, because they are getting further into Ukraine and hitting targets further inside Ukraine, particularly targeting things like the railway network, of course, which is crucial given that civilian planes just don't fly here. You can't fly stuff around in the air, it's too dangerous. So at the moment, nothing, and of course there's absolute stasis, absolute nothing happening diplomatically of any consequence at the moment. A lot of focus, of course, in Washington on the Middle East peace deal, and what tends to happen, and certainly from my experience, is that when one of these conflicts is in full focus, the other one tends to go on the back burner, and I think that's what is happening here in Ukraine at the moment, because all those efforts, all that optimism around the time of the Alaska summit, and I remember speaking to you from the Alaska summit that time, and Vladimir Putin on US soil talking to Donald Trump about possibly a deal, all that really has come to nothing. So okay. I think a lot of pessimism, if you like, about the situation here at the moment, and really a war of attrition is taking place.
Gary O'Donoghue there for us in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. Now, the Prince and Princess of Wales have launched the National Suicide Prevention Network, which will receive £1 million of funding from the Royal Foundation. As part of his campaign to raise awareness, Prince William's been talking to Rhiannon Mannings, whose husband took his own life. Here's our senior royal correspondent, Daniela Relf.
Rhiannon, how are you? So nice.
They first met in 2017. 8 years on, the Prince of Wales and Rhiannon Mannings are picking up where they left off.
Thank you. Can I prioritise a Welsh cake first? Would that be right?
Absolutely, yes.
I do love
Over Welsh cakes and tea, they chatted about family and loss.
But how have you been there, Rhiannon? Because I obviously haven't caught up with you for a long time.
It's up and down. Everything's up and down. Life's up and down anyway, isn't it?
Rhiannon's 1-year-old son, George, and husband, Paul, died within days of each other in 2012. Paul took his own life after his son died suddenly. George had been admitted to hospital with pneumonia. His grief at the loss of his child had overwhelmed him. For Prince William, the anguish of the family story was at times hard to bear.
If you could say something, or wanted to say something to Paul, what would you have said?
I would just like to sit him down like this and just say, why didn't you come to me? Because he's missed out on
just so much joy, and we would have been okay. And I think that's what the hardest thing is. We would have been okay. You okay?
I'm sorry, it's hard to ask you questions that
I
know.
Hard, and
it is.
you've experienced loss yourself.
It's okay.
Life can throw you these awful curveballs, but by talking about it, by, having hope, you can continue.
The best way to prevent suicide is to talk about it. Talk about it early, talk about it with your loved ones, those you trust, your friends. So thank you for talking about it.
And thank you for talking about it too.
Thank you. Have a safe trip and a good rest of the day.
Prince William wants the new suicide prevention network to deliver lasting change and ease the suffering of so many.
He's taking you to Tupperware.
Daniela Ralph, BBC News.
And just to say, if you have been affected by any of the issues raised in Dahlia's report there, you can find details of organisations that do offer information and support at bbc.co.uk/actionline. Now then, the green turtle has been rescued from the brink of extinction in what scientists are calling a major victory for conservation. Once hunted extensively for their decorative shells and for food, numbers plummeted. But thanks to decades of global efforts, new data shows numbers of green turtles are actually bouncing back. Here's our environment correspondent, Helen Briggs.
Scuttling across the sands of Borneo and getting their first dip in the sea. These baby green turtles face a dangerous journey ahead, from getting tangled in fishing nets to illegal hunting. Scientists have worked for decades to boost its survival odds, and now a landmark moment. The green turtle has moved back from the brink of extinction, with numbers rising by about 30% since the 1970s.
I think it's great that sea turtles are nearly off the endangered list. It just tells this great story of how people across the planet can come together to turn things around and turn the negative trajectory of turtles into a positive one.
The recovery of the green turtle has been put down to protecting the beaches where they lay their eggs, stopping illegal trade, and measures like adding turtle escape routes to fishing nets.
He can be quite a pest actually at feed times. He'll come and steal the food off the sharks if we're not careful.
Here at the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth, home to a green turtle rescued after straying into British waters, experts have welcomed the news.
I think people like turtles because they're engaging and they're charismatic, and people create this emotive response when they see one. And I think that's the important thing about engaging with the public. You need to make them love the ocean. And when they learn about something, when they love it, they're more likely to protect it. So I think the important thing to remember here is there's hope. There's hope that we can actually make things better.
The aquarium works to raise awareness of marine conservation, with Friday the star attraction.
They're that charismatic species, and if we look after the turtles, then hopefully we can look after the other animals that depend on the same environments, like the seagrass beds on which they depend on to survive.
On the menu today, lettuce as a replacement for the natural seagrass diet of wild turtles.
Sea turtles like Friday here having his lunch have really captivated the public imagination, raising awareness of wider issues affecting the oceans, from plastic pollution to unsustainable fishing. And he's a really curious little fellow, aren't you?
Things may be looking up, but these ancient mariners will still need protection for years to come. Helen Briggs, BBC News.
There we are, the green turtle rescued from the brink of extinction. Do stay with us, plenty more to come here on BBC News. Hello, live from London. This is BBC News with me, Ben Brown. Thousands of Palestinians in Gaza begin returning to their homes in the north of the territory after Israel said a ceasefire is now in effect. Hamas is expected to release all hostages by noon local time on Monday. Israel publishes a list of 250 Palestinians to be released from its jails.
And I'm Lise Doucette in Jerusalem. I'll be speaking to Egypt's foreign ministry spokesperson about how to monitor this deal. What about President Trump's visit to the region?
Also this hour, Venezuela's opposition leader wins this year's Nobel Peace Prize. The White House criticizes the prize committee, saying it should have gone to President Donald Trump.
The hardest thing is we would have been okay. You okay?
And Prince William holds back tears as he reconnects with a woman whose husband took his own life. He's launching a national suicide prevention network with the Princess of Wales. Hello, welcome to the programme. Well, thousands of Palestinians in Gaza are returning right now to their homes, or what's left of their homes, after Israel announced that a ceasefire is now in effect in the territory. Well, we're seeing live pictures of a steady stream of displaced Palestinians trudging north along the coast road back towards Gaza City, which was, until very recently, the scene of that ferocious Israeli ground offensive and aerial bombardment. Now, Israel says its forces have withdrawn to the lines within Gaza that are set out in the ceasefire agreement, which was part of Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan. As for Hamas, it now has until Monday morning to release all Israeli hostages, 20 who are still believed to be alive, and the bodies of 28 others who are thought to be dead. Now, in return, Israel has published today a list of 250 Palestinian prisoners and detainees who are going to be released in exchange for those hostages. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said in a televised address today that his country's troops will stay in Gaza to make sure that Hamas disarms in future stages of that ceasefire plan. Our first report now is from our Middle East correspondent, Hugo Beshega.
By the road, they waited, with the few things that were now everything they had. Unsure if it was safe to return, unsure if the bombs had stopped falling. The deal had brought them hope, but this morning they still didn't know if it had finally brought them peace. My son and I slept here last night, on the pavement, in the cold, waiting to go back home, Wael says. Even if the house is destroyed, even if it's just rubble, we'll go back, put up a tent, and return to our people. After hours of uncertainty, the Israeli military confirmed that the ceasefire had started. Israeli troops have pulled back from some parts, but under the deal, they still occupy over half of Gaza. Many now are going back, even by foot, to mourn who's been lost and to start rebuilding what's been destroyed. In Israel, the countdown for the release of the hostages has begun. 20 are believed to remain alive. One of them is Segev Hafon, kidnapped at the Nova Music Festival.
We hope that he returns safe and sound, and we wish that, with God's help, within the next 2 or 3 days, we will see him. We'll rejoice together with the family, and we really hope that everyone, not just him, returns safe and sound.
It's still not clear when and where the hostages will be freed. The deal brokered by Trump is a major victory, but there's no clear plan for what happens in Gaza next.
The point now is that we need countries coming together to make peace a reality and to actually make it happen, because this is still a fragile process, but it's one that there is huge momentum behind and huge commitment to, so we have to make it work.
They can now walk without fearing the war, but the Gaza they know is no longer there, and no one knows what the new Gaza will be. Hugo Beshega, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, a short time ago, I spoke to our Gaza correspondent, Rushdie Abu-Alouf, who's now in Istanbul, and he told me of the feeling amongst those Gazan people heading back to their homes.
Well, the mood in Gaza since the morning was shifted from joy and happiness yesterday to some anger as the videos emerge, and those people who are walking back in this huge march back to Gaza, they have received information that most of them, they won't find their homes anymore standing. We are expecting this line to be continue for days, because if you look this very small dusty road, it takes time for about 700,000 people who fled Gaza during the fighting to return back. Well, we heard that Israel would allow also the Salah ad-Din road, which is proper, more bigger road to allow the people to go back. But it is very angry mood, because the images and the picture from Gaza is really showing that the three main neighborhoods, Sheikh Radwan in the north, Sabra and Zaytun in the south, and 90% of it is completely destroyed. And this walk is about 20 kilometers, and very few people who can afford this big payment of £900 to hire a truck, small truck or a car. Most of the people, they don't have the money to pay for this. So the mood of celebration just to change to what we can see now, a live picture from there.
That's Rushdie Abu Alouf, our Gaza correspondent, and I've also been talking to our North America correspondent in Washington, Nomia Iqbal, who told me about President Trump's plans to head to Israel.
He'll be going on Sunday. He plans to address the Israeli parliament in Knesset. It will be somewhat of a victory lap for him. He will probably also be looking to put more pressure on members of the Israeli government, the far-right members, who, whilst the phase one of this deal has passed, they're still pushing back on parts of the ceasefire. There were talks about him potentially going to Gaza, but that, we understand, is not going to happen. There's still a long way to go, obviously, and just looking at the pictures and what Rushdie is saying there so many unanswered questions yet. What happens to Gaza? Who governs Gaza? How do people rebuild their lives there? Mr. Trump is then expected to go to Egypt, to Sharm el-Sheikh, where he's been invited by Egypt's president to then take part in the official signing of the ceasefire. And Mr. Trump is an optics guy. He knows that this is all about ultimately how it looks, and it will be a moment for many pictures to be taken to record this moment in history. And I think if the ceasefire does fully pull off and there is enduring peace, this will definitely be a very significant part of his legacy.
He definitely is an optics guy, and one of the optics he was hoping for was a picture of him holding the Nobel Peace Prize, and he hasn't got that. What's been the reaction, Nomia, from the White House to that?
Well, obviously they're not thrilled about it. I mean, the Nobel Peace Prize has been this almost obsession, I would say, for the Trump administration, for the Trump team, for Trump himself. They released a statement saying that the committee had put politics over peace. But not to be a party pooper, I don't think there was any chance of him getting it this year. He was nominated by the Pakistani government and by the Israeli Prime Minister in December, but by the time this first part of the ceasefire was announced, the committee had probably already made their minds up. But I'm sure that they will be hoping to try and get it next year.
That's Nomia Iqbal there, our North America correspondent. Well, let's also go now live to our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucet, who's in Jerusalem for us now. And Lise, early days, very early days, but this ceasefire seems to be holding. We're seeing thousands of Palestinians heading back to their homes. And then, of course, the next stage, which will be very dramatic, the release early next week of the hostages.
Yes, Ben, hour by hour, things are slowly falling into place. The approval by the Israeli Security Cabinet last night, the approval by the full cabinet in the early hours of the morning, the Israeli forces withdrawing to the approved lines by midday, ceasefire in force. We are expecting the aid to start going in much bigger quantities. And then you say is the hostage and prisoner releases. We're also getting more details about 200 U.S. soldiers who will be part of a multinational task force, and their job will be to monitor this deal to ensure there are no violations. And Arab states including Egypt, are going to play a crucial role in all of this. They have been throughout the process. Let's cross to Cairo to join Ambassador Tamim Khalaf, who's the chief spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry. Welcome to BBC News, Ambassador Khalaf.
Good to have you, Elise.
It seems we're still getting details from Sharm el-Sheikh that there's still some issues that haven't quite been resolved, that the Hamas is disputing some of the names on the prisoner list, of the list to be released. Is the deal completely done?
Yes, the spirit is constructive. We are moving in the right direction. This is really a transformational inflection point in the Middle East. We are moving towards a very constructive and very positive. There's a lot of positivity in the talks, and we are moving in the right direction, in a direction that is fulfilling the many promises and aspirations of millions of people across the world that want to see this conflict end, that want to see an end of bloodshed and to have peace. This is a significantly important agreement that, as you rightly mentioned, will see the release of Israeli hostages, of Palestinian detainees, Israel withdrawal and redeployment of its forces in Gaza, and of course, and more importantly, to afford the necessary humanitarian aid and medical supplies to the people in Gaza. So I can categorically tell you this is moving in the right direction. There is a spirit, a constructive spirit and positivity that is hovering over Sharm el-Sheikh and Egypt in general.
Hamas has said that they have received guarantees that the war will not resume. Can you give us any more details about that? Because Egypt, as a key mediator, would have been involved in getting those assurances.
I think all parties have received assurances that everything will fall into place, including from Hamas and also from Israel. So yes, again, as I just mentioned earlier, there are guarantees that are being provided. I think there is a general mood that everyone is rising to the occasion. This is a significant inflection point in the history of the Middle East and in the conflict. So everyone is indeed, this is the moment of truth for everyone. And it seems that all parties are rising to the occasion, and the implementation of the provisions of the agreement is moving in the right direction.
And what role is Egypt going to play going forward? We already hear that some Egyptian forces are on the ground in Gaza. They've been helping to set up camps. You'll also be part of what's being called a multinational task force to ensure the deal isn't violated. Can you take us through some of the next steps of this process?
Well, first of all, we are in the initial phase of the agreement. And as I had mentioned, there are several elements of that initial agreement. But of course, there's going to be sequential phases that as we move on, will have to be implemented. There's a lot of issues that need to be addressed, including transitional governance and security arrangements, as you rightly mentioned. And of course, rehabilitation and reconstruction of Gaza. All of these issues, obviously, Egypt will be playing a constructive and influential role, as we have continued to do. And so obviously, yes, there are going to be some significant discussions. The specifics and details will be addressed with our American partners, with our regional partners, a lot of specifics and details that will be addressed in due course. But as of now, I think there's a lot of interest to see the fulfillment of the initial phase, and hopefully that will build the necessary momentum to move on to the more detailed discussions of ensuring stability in Gaza, ensuring the security of Gaza, and as well as the issue of transitional governance, which is incredibly important.
What do you think will be the toughest issue going forward? For example, Prime Minister Netanyahu stressed again today Hamas had to be disarmed. We've heard from senior Hamas officials they're not ready to give up their guns. Perhaps it's an issue of heavy weapons versus small arms. Is that, in Egypt's view, one of the toughest issues to address now in this next stage?
Well, I think all of the issues are quite tough. They're all interconnected in a way, and I think they're all very challenging issues. The question of the future governance of Gaza, but as you rightly, as you know, we have some perspectives of how this will happen, of having Palestinian technocrats that are going to be non-factional taking charge of Gaza temporarily or provisionally before the Palestinian Authority can come and continue to govern in Gaza the way they did before in 2005. But obviously there are security arrangements. There's discussions related to the international stability force, but obviously there's a lot of discussions that need to be made on the issue of composition, the structure, the mandate of this force, and we believe that it needs to be mandated by the Security Council. So I don't think there's an easy issue here to be addressed. All of them are quite complicated, they are complex but interconnected, but I think with the positive momentum that has been brewing in the past few days, with the constructive spirit and with the incredible and quite steadfast leadership of President Trump, these agreements, we can reach to consensual outcomes on all of these issues.
More immediately, Egypt must be in overdrive trying to organize what's said to be a signing ceremony on Monday in Sharm el-Sheikh. As we heard from our Washington correspondent, President Trump likes the optics. Is there anything you can tell us about what kind of a summit it will be? Will other Arab leaders be invited? Does it have a name? What more can you tell us?
Well, there will be a public announcement, obviously, with all of the organizational details on the modalities related to that. So I will leave it up to the public announcement. But obviously, the beginning of next week is going to be a significant inflection point. This is going to be really a transformational, defining moment in this conflict, and hopefully it will be behind our backs. There is now a glimmer of hope, and that this will pave the way for ensuring that we can cement peace and ensure that we are moving forward in order to have peace and security in this region and engage in a process of generational healing between Palestinians and Israelis, hopefully in the long term.
Ambassador Tamim Halaf, thank you very much for joining us. We'll have all eyes on Egypt, at least in the second part of the day on Monday, and many the world over, and most of all in this region, will hope that it's a day of ceremony and celebration and a real affirmation that this long sought after deal is on course. Thank you very much for joining us from Cairo. And there you go, Ben. Not many details released, and perhaps that is the way. There has to be an official announcement. But I would imagine it's often the case when an American president comes to the region that other Arab leaders gather at the same point so that President Trump can thank all of the people who, and there are many, who have been behind this deal. So there'll be a lot of, as President Trump likes to say, a lot of those made-for-television moments on Monday. But hopefully, most importantly of all, that ceasefire will hold on the ground in Gaza, and the humanitarian aid will flow, and there will be some really emotional reunions.
Yes, indeed. Lise, thank you so much. Lise Doucet there, our chief international correspondent live in Jerusalem. And earlier I spoke to Riyad Mansour, who's permanent observer of the state of Palestine to the United Nations, and asked him about the ceasefire agreement currently now in place.
Yes, I am optimistic. Thank you for having me. I admire and I was moved by this massive river of Palestinians returning to their homes in the north, in the Gaza Strip. This is, it happened at the beginning of the year when the ceasefire was announced on 19th of January, and they returned, and they are returning again, and they are determined to go back to their houses, to clean up, and to begin the reconstruction, and to set up tents. You cannot but admire and be moved by the resiliency of the Palestinian people.
Well, it is a very moving sight there, and we can see those pictures of that continuing stream of humanity, really, as the Palestinians head back to Gaza City to try to find what is left of their homes. But can I ask you, Riyad Mansour, I mean, what do you think in the longer term? This is just the first phase of the ceasefire plan. But later on, the plan says that Hamas has to disarm. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister has said Israeli troops will stay in Gaza until Hamas does disarm. Do you see that happening?
Well, let us first of all deal with the details of what was agreed upon. The people are returning to their homes in the northern part. They need massive humanitarian assistance. And I listened to Mr. Fletcher in your earlier program, in which he said that they have thousands of truckloads of humanitarian assistance, and they want to flood the Gaza Strip with needed humanitarian assistance, food, water, medicine, so that people can be sustained, and bodies of children would be giving the strength in order not to die from famine. These important steps need to take place immediately, and also the exchange of detainees and hostages. The hundreds and maybe the thousands of Palestinian prisoners who will be returning to their loved ones, their stories need to be told. They're human beings. They have stories. Their parents and their families suffered immensely during the years of their captivity and in jail. So that's another thing that will be put in place. And the withdrawal of the Israeli army from the Gaza Strip, I know at this stage they withdrew to a certain lines, but they have to withdraw completely from the Gaza Strip, and we need to begin the process of reconstruction of Gaza.
That was Riyad Mansour, permanent observer of the State of Palestine at the United Nations. Plenty more to come. Do stay tuned. You're watching BBC News. Hello again. The White House has criticised the Nobel Committee for awarding this year's Nobel Peace Prize to a Venezuelan opposition leader instead of the US President Donald Trump. It was announced that the honour would go to democracy campaigner Maria Corina Machado. But a White House spokesman accused the Nobel jury of placing politics over peace and added that Mr. Trump could move mountains with the sheer force of his will. Well, Ms. Machado said her win was a recognition of the immense struggle of all Venezuelans. Let's talk now to Eugenia Olivaria, who's daughter of Magali Meda, who's a Venezuelan political activist who in 2024 served as head of the national campaign of the Venezuelan opposition leader and now Nobel Peace Prize winner, Maria Corina Machado. Thank you very much for being with us. Well, what is your reaction to this news that she has won the Nobel Peace Prize?
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me. It's so shocking and it's a great honor and a sign of hope that we might be closer to freedom than we were yesterday. It protects her somehow because she is the leader that didn't run for elections because she was inhabilitated. She was prohibited by the made-up rules of this dictatorship that just has proven to be monstrous over the past 2 years and just kidnapping, killing, torturing, raping any political opposition, and even non-political affiliations, civilians who simply cross the wrong path with this police state that also happens to be narco-terrorists. And Maria Corina is an incredible beacon of hope, and she has managed to unify the entire country. We won the elections nationally 70-30, but that's without counting the international votes of people like me who weren't able to vote because of refugee status. So if you were actually to take into account all the people who couldn't vote or who were too afraid to vote, it's actually like 90-10 or 95-5% of people. And that 5% is threatened, corrupt, complice of this terrible network of monsters that run our country's oil, and they run our country's police and weapons, and have continued to torture society.
And so you think that because she is now the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, this will embolden her campaign and give heart to her supporters?
Yeah, it's true that it's not about politics anymore. It's about moral. The political landfill was already won with this election. We already proved that we are an immense majority. So it's about keeping that conversation alive. It's about reminding the world that this was a peaceful act of reminding Venezuelans their civil rights to vote and to protect their vote and to hold accountable. And now we are able to speak about it again. She's in hiding. She's been incredibly brave. She's been incredibly coherent throughout her 15 years of political work. And now it's time that the world recognizes that, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But it's also scary. So this protects her. So I'm very grateful to know that she's safer than she was yesterday.
Well, great to talk to you, and congratulations to her, the winner of this year's Nobel Peace Prize winner, Maria Corina Machado. But Eugenia Olvaraya, thank you very much for being with us on BBC News. Thank you. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. Hello again, you're watching BBC News with me, Ben Brown. A look at our latest news headlines. And thousands of Palestinians in Gaza have begun returning to their homes in the north of the territory after Israel said that a ceasefire is now in effect. Venezuela's opposition leader has won this year's Nobel Peace Prize. The White House, though, criticised the Nobel Committee, saying it should have gone to President Trump.
The hardest thing is we would have been okay. You okay?
Prince William holds back tears as he reconnects with a woman whose husband took his own life. He's launching a national suicide prevention network along with the Princess of Wales. An Afghan man who came to the UK on a small boat has been found guilty of threatening to kill Nigel Farage on TikTok. And the green turtle bounces back from the brink of extinction in what scientists say is a major conservation victory. Well, our top story is in Gaza, where the ceasefire has now come into effect and thousands of Palestinians are making their way back north to Gaza City. The Israeli military said its troops are positioning themselves along the updated deployment line set out in the ceasefire agreement. BBC Verify has been examining videos showing Israeli troops pulling back and what it means for Palestinians returning home. Merlin Thomas reports.
Israeli troops have been withdrawing from Gaza on Friday morning, and we've been verifying video circulating on social media like this, showing tanks and heavy machinery approaching and crossing the Western Erez, which is located on the Gaza Strip's northern border. Now, to recap, this is President Trump's latest plan for the first stage of Israeli troop withdrawal. You can see that here in these yellow lines. Now, it would mean Israel would still control about 55% of Gaza. Israel has already sliced the Gaza Strip into different military corridors, as you can see here in these red lines. Now, these are militarized zones and are used by the army for access to move across Gaza. In some places, you can see that the White House plan roughly matches up with some existing boundaries created by the Israeli military. It's worth emphasizing this is the latest map, but we don't know how closely this corresponds to what was finally agreed, and that will be crucial to what happens to Israeli troops on the ground. Now, Palestinians will have the chance to return home to northern Gaza, where they were ordered to flee. But what's left for them to return to? Israel has destroyed swathes of the Strip. Whole neighborhoods in Gaza City have been wiped off the map. For now, Palestinians and Israelis will be waiting anxiously in the hopes that the ceasefire agreement holds.
Merlin Thomas reporting there. Well, I've been talking to Olga Cherevka, spokesperson for the United Nations Aid Coordination Office, who's in Deir al-Balah in Gaza. And she told me that aid is now ready to be distributed in Gaza.
So we are ready. We are ready to start as soon as conditions allow. And as we've said before, we need, in order to flood Gaza with aid, we need additional crossings to be open. We need safe access. We need visas for our staff. We need, guarantees of unfettered and unimpeded access and unrestricted flow of aid into Gaza. So we have 170,000 metric tons of shelter supplies, of food, medicine, and everything that people need here to meet their needs. And all of these things can be easily loaded on the trucks and come in to Gaza as soon as these enablers are in place. So
when do you think that will be? Because obviously every day is crucial. We know that people are suffering in famine-like conditions and have been for a long time now, and they are desperate for supplies. So when do you think those truckloads are going to start rolling in?
Exactly. That is extremely urgent, and we are hoping that it will start immediately. Obviously, the announcement of the start of the ceasefire being in effect took place at noon. It was announced that it took effect at noon today, and we're hoping that in the coming hours, at the latest days, we will have aid flowing freely into Gaza.
And do you think you have enough supplies in place, enough stocks to get in there in the initial phase of this sort of flooding of aid into Gaza?
So yes, we have enough, and we will have more in the pipeline as this begins. The process begins. As we have said before, we have a plan for the first 60 days to target really the most vulnerable people and ensure that things like food access, medicine, shelter assistance, water and sanitation assistance is targeted directly at these most vulnerable people. And we have mechanisms in place to ensure that this is directed directly to them. And obviously, this will have to be a continuous process because the needs here are immense. And everybody is in need of humanitarian assistance. But our priority right now is to get this going and to reach the most vulnerable first, who need it obviously most urgently.
That was Olga Cherevka, who's spokesperson for the United Nations Aid Coordination Office. And I've also been talking to the writer and former Israeli diplomat Alon Pinchas, and I asked him if he thinks that this ceasefire agreement can work.
No. Unfortunately not, Ben, and I'm sorry to say that. Mikey described before me expertly what could go wrong. And with the missing ingredients that he also mentioned, trust, the ability to verify, and goodwill, all of which are conspicuously absent, the explosiveness of the situation, the fragility is such that I don't see this going on. Now, here's why. To begin with, to be somewhat optimistic about this, the first phase will probably go on smoothly, meaning that the next 72 hours in which the Hamas is releasing the 20 Israeli hostages who are alive and hopefully all of the 28 bodies of those who have been killed or murdered, and in exchange, Israel is returning Palestinian prisoners. That'll probably go on smoothly. The Israeli redeployment, although not complete and full as the agreement would mandate, but it is sufficient to allow for this to happen. But what remains, even before the next phases that you just alluded to, is Hamas's disarmament. I don't see them disarming. And the chances of a miscalculation, a skirmish, a bad reaction, a misunderstanding is huge. You know, there is something called, I'm sure Mikey, who's not with us now, knows the term. It's called the strategic, the strategic corporal. Meaning that there's a corporal out there who's scared. He's 19 years old. He wants to go home. He thinks it's all over. He's being shot at because he's scared, because it's uncertain, because he doesn't know what's going on. He starts shooting back like crazy. Before you know it, there's a skirmish, and the ripple effect creates the complete breakdown of the ceasefire, and you have a strategic event just because of that one frightened corporal. And so that's why I think practically the next phases are extraordinarily difficult to implement. That's on the tactical ground level.
That was Alon Pinchas, who's a former Israeli diplomat and writer, talking to me a little bit earlier on about his thoughts about how that ceasefire plan might pan out. You're watching BBC News around the world and across the UK. Hello again. Hundreds of people have lined the streets of Manchester to say goodbye to the former boxing world champion Ricky Hatton ahead of his funeral. In the last hour, Hatton's family, friends and a host of stars, including Liam Gallagher, Wayne Rooney and Freddie Flintoff, gathered at Manchester Cathedral to pay their respects. Our sports reporter, Patrick Geary, has the latest.
It was typically Ricky Hatton that even on this saddest of days, there would be an element of humour. His funeral cortege led through his hometown of Hyde by a Robin Reliant, Del Boy's car from his favourite programme Only Fools and Horses. Del, like Ricky, a people's champion.
A truly unforgettable moment, and I think the community and how everyone's come together, it's just really, really lovely.
It was thoughtful, kind, considerate, humorous. If you could build a best mate, you would build Ricky Hatton.
They always came out for Ricky, an individual who made boxing a team sport. Such was his support. At the New Inn Tavern, doves were released in their hero's honour. These were the places of Ricky Hatton's life, where he grew up and where he always lived. Past his gym, and in amid the black, flashes of light blue, the colours of Ricky's beloved Manchester City, who he'd supported all his life. He was, at his peak, one of the best boxers in the world. He was always the pride of Hyde.
Ricky was just like one of them guys you could walk past, hey up Ricky, knowing that he's just a world champion. No one really even looked at him like that. We just looked at him like a local lad.
We've seen him at his highs and his lows, but he's just Ricky. He's just a local guy who's done so much for the community.
Meanwhile, mourners gathered at Manchester Cathedral, champions and icons. Stars from sport and those from completely different worlds, all brought together by one remarkable man.
You have to look around at all the people to see what he's like as a person. Everyone's come out from him, and it's brought Manchester to a standstill.
You know, he made us so proud in the ring. It was a time when the city probably needed a bit of lift. My God, did Ricky provide it.
He's an amazing guy, and he was a phenomenal fighter, and just incredible. Brought people together.
Ricky Hatton went into the cathedral accompanied by the Manchester City anthem Blue Moon and surrounded by love, but also unimaginable grief at a life over too soon. Patrick Geary, BBC News.
An Afghan man who came to the United Kingdom on a small boat has been found guilty of threatening to kill Nigel Farage in a video that was posted on TikTok. Fayaz Khan posted the video last October, where he named the Reform UK leader and made a gun gesture with his hand. Mr. Khan had a very large presence online with his videos on TikTok under the username Madapasa. The prosecutor said Mr. Khan's videos showed his attempts to come to the UK by small boat from Afghanistan. Mr. Farage had uploaded a video to YouTube highlighting Mr. Khan and referenced young males of fighting age coming into our country. Mr. Khan then posted his video, and the prosecutor said Mr. Khan was a dangerous man with an interest in firearms. Now, the green turtle's been rescued from the brink of extinction in what scientists are calling a major conservation victory. Once hunted extensively for their decorative shells and for food, numbers plummeted. But thanks to decades of global efforts, new data shows numbers of green turtles are actually bouncing back. Ellen Briggs has the story.
Scuttling across the sands of Borneo and getting their first dip in the sea. These baby green turtles face a dangerous journey ahead, from getting tangled in fishing nets to illegal hunting. Scientists have worked for decades to boost its survival odds, and now a landmark moment. The green turtle has moved back from the brink of extinction, with numbers rising by about 30% since the 1970s.
I think it's great that sea turtles are nearly off the endangered list. It just tells this great story of how people across the planet can come together to turn things around and turn the negative trajectory of turtles into a positive one.
The recovery of the green turtle has been put down to protecting the beaches where they lay their eggs, stopping illegal trade, and measures like adding turtle escape routes to fishing nets.
He can be quite a pest actually at feed times. He'll come and steal the food off the sharks if we're not careful.
Here at the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth, home to a green turtle rescued after straying into British waters, experts have welcomed the news.
I think people like turtles because they're engaging and they're charismatic, and people create this emotive response when they see one. And I think that's the important thing about engaging with the public. You need to make them love the ocean. And when they learn about something, when they love it, they're more likely to protect it. So I think the important thing to remember here is there's hope. You know, there's hope that we can actually make things better.
The aquarium works to raise awareness of marine conservation, with Friday the star attraction.
They're that charismatic species, and if we look after the turtles, then hopefully we can look after the other animals that depend on the same environments, like the seagrass beds on which they depend on to survive.
On the menu today, lettuce as a replacement for the natural seagrass diet of wild turtles.
Sea turtles like Friday here having his lunch have really captivated the public imagination, raising awareness of wider issues affecting the oceans, from plastic pollution to unsustainable fishing. And he's a really curious little fellow, aren't you?
Things may be looking up, but these ancient mariners will still need protection for years to come. Helen Briggs, BBC News.
Now, the Prince and Princess of Wales have launched the National Suicide Prevention Network, which will receive £1 million of funding from the Royal Foundation. As part of his campaign to raise awareness, Prince William has been talking to Rhiannon Mannings, whose husband took his own life. Here's our senior royal correspondent, Daniela Relf.
Rhiannon, how are you? So nice.
They first met in 2017. 8 years on, the Prince of Wales and Rhiannon Mannings are picking up where they left off.
Thank you. Can I prioritise the Welsh cake first? Would that be right?
Absolutely, yes.
I do love
Over Welsh cakes and tea, they chatted about family and loss.
But how have you been there, Rhiannon? Because I obviously haven't caught up with you for a long time.
You know, it's up and down. Everything's up and down. Life's up and down anyway, isn't it?
Rhiannon's 1-year-old son George and husband Paul died within days of each other in 2012. Paul took his own life after his son died suddenly. George had been admitted to hospital with pneumonia. His grief at the loss of his child had overwhelmed him. For Prince William, the anguish of the family story was at times hard to bear.
If you could say something, or wanted to say something to Paul, what would you have said?
I would just like to sit him down like this and just say, why didn't you come to me? Because he's missed out on just so much joy, and we would have been okay. And I think that's what the hardest thing is. We would have been okay. You okay?
I'm sorry, it's hard to ask you a question that
I
know.
Hard,
no,
and
it is.
You've experienced loss yourself.
It's okay.
Prince William's interest in suicide prevention stretches back many years.
Do a serious one. Do a serious one? Do you want a serious one?
The creation of the Heads Together project with his wife and brother in 2016 focused on the devastating impact of mental health. It's a theme that has run through so much of his public work ever since. In 2023, Prince William surprised Emma Webb. She'd been pulling a life-size replica of a horse from Monmouthshire to London to raise money and awareness after her 16-year-old daughter Brodie took her own life. For a while, Prince William joined the walk. And last month at Cardiff's Principality Stadium, he visited the mental health charity the Jack Lewis Foundation, named after 27-year-old Jack, who took his own life in 2019. The charity will now form part of the National Suicide Prevention Network. Backed by over £1 million from the Prince and Princess of Wales's Royal Foundation, Prince William says it is part of a bold, unified response to the heartbreaking and preventable tragedy of suicide.
There's still a lot of stigma around suicide.
Back in Rhiannon's kitchen in Cardiff, prevention was very much part of the conversation.
Life can throw you these awful curveballs, but by talking about it, by, having hope, you can continue.
The best way to prevent suicide is to talk about it. talk about it early, talk about it with your loved ones, those you trust, your friends. So thank you for talking about it.
And thank you for talking about it too.
Thank you. Have a safe trip and a good rest of the day.
Prince William wants the new Suicide Prevention Network to deliver lasting change and ease the suffering of so many.
He's taking your Tupperware.
Daniela Ralph, BBC News.
Now let's just take you back to Gaza, and this is the scene on the border now. You can see the beautiful sunset there. The ceasefire agreement is now in force, much to the relief of the people of Gaza. Thousands of displaced people have begun walking home along the coastal road towards Gaza City, and in Hostages Square in Tel Aviv, where relatives and friends and families of the hostages, you can see them there. They are waiting with hope and expectation for the release of loved ones, hopefully early next week under that Trump peace plan. Around the world and across the UK, you are watching BBC News.
From February 1942 to September 1945, Singapore was under a brutal Japanese occupation. It was during this time that my great-uncle Etienne Chan was captured, never to be seen again. To help me uncover his fate and understand Singapore's wartime experience, I've come to meet historian Jerome Lim at the Battle Box in Fort Canning Hill.
Hi, you must be Jerome.
I am.
Hi,
Pleased
nice
to meet you.
I'm Carmen.
Hi, Carmen. Good to meet you. Shall we go in?
Yeah. This old British bunker is now a war museum.
I never knew this existed. So tell me about the Battle Box.
Yeah, not very big, size of maybe 2.5 basketball courts.
Is that all?
So much happened in here. There's 23 rooms, and there was something like, it was built for about 100 men, but in the final days, there was something like 500 men squeezed in here. So you can imagine how uncomfortable it would have been.
It was from here that the British surrendered to the Japanese on February 15, 1942. The museum's life-size diorama depicts the final meeting as British officers gathered to make their decision.
So Jerome, I've come here to find a bit more about my great-uncle who disappeared during the war. What can you tell me? Because there's not very many records from that time.
Yeah, unfortunately, there aren't many records for obvious reasons, because I think the Japanese went all out to try to get rid of as many Chinese as possible. So it's part of this plan to maybe put fear into the population, maybe also part of this plan to kind of exact revenge, you know, for the support for the anti-Japanese movement in China. So Japan had invaded China previously, and you know, lots of Singapore Chinese were actually sending money to support the cause, the fight against the Japanese.
From February 18 to March 4, 1942, the Japanese military carried out the Sukching massacre. Historians estimate the death toll to be between 25 and 50,000.
Were the Peranakans particularly targeted?
They were seen as the king's Chinese. One of the things the Japanese went for were people who spoke English, maybe better educated. And I guess the Peranakans fitted that bill.
Yeah, making them targets.
Yeah, so they were natural targets, I would say.
Jerome has pictures from the time showing how the local Chinese were treated.
Men were told to report too. They were kind of sorted out. Sometimes, you know, just at random, they were picked. The unfortunate ones, they get put on a lorry, often with, you know, the hands tied behind the backs. Yeah, and then sent straight to the places where they are shot.
This is possibly what could have happened to my great-uncle.
It's possibly the case, yeah. This was like here in Singapore. People who, you know, just waited and waited for their sons, their, you know, fathers, their husbands to return home, and they never came home.
The Travel Show, your essential guide wherever you're heading. Every weekend on BBC News.
For me, trust is about presence.
About fostering relationships all around the world, over years.
It's about patience, not rushing to be the first,
but striving to get it right.
To get to the truth.
We can't just ask the questions.
We have to question the answers. Debate, debate, debate. We have to create a space for opposing voices to be heard
and challenged.
We fight every day
to earn your trust.
And we never take it for granted.
We capture the story.
Fact check the story.
Break the story.
We explore the story.
So you can trust us to tell it.
Hello, live from London. This is BBC News with me, Ben Brown. Thousands of Palestinians in Gaza have begun returning to their homes in the north of the territory after Israel said a ceasefire is now in effect. Hamas is expected to release all hostages by noon local time on Monday, as Israel publishes a list of 250 Palestinians to be released from its jails. We'll have the latest from Jerusalem, Washington, and also from our Gaza correspondent Rushdie Abu-Alouf. Venezuela's opposition leader wins this year's Nobel Peace Prize. The White House criticises the prize committee, saying it should have gone to President Donald Trump.
The hardest thing is we would have been okay. You okay?
Prince William is clearly emotional as he reconnects with a woman whose husband took his own life. He's launching a national suicide prevention network with the Princess of Wales. Hello, thousands of Palestinians in Gaza are returning to their homes, or what is left of them, after Israel announced that a ceasefire is now in effect. We have seen a steady stream all day of displaced Palestinians trudging north along the coast back towards Gaza City. Well, the ceasefire came into effect a few hours ago once it had been approved by the Israeli government. Under the deal, Israel pulled back its soldiers to agreed positions in Gaza, marked here by the yellow line. But the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, say they will continue to remove any immediate threat. The IDF withdrawal has triggered a 72-hour countdown to midday on Monday, by which time Hamas must release the remaining 20 living Israeli hostages and also return the remains of the 28 who are thought to be dead. For its part, Israel at the same time has to release 250 Palestinians from its prisons, as well as 1,700 people detained in Gaza during the war. Well, joining us now to discuss the latest developments, we have our correspondent Barbara Plett-Usher, who's in Jerusalem, Nomia Iqbal in Washington, and our Gaza correspondent Rushdie Abu-Alouf, who's currently in Istanbul. Barbara, to you first of all, and the good news is at the moment, and it's very early days, the ceasefire seems to be holding.
That's right. It came into effect midday local time, and there had been some confusion before then as the Israelis were redeploying and there was artillery fire and Palestinians were unsure about what would happen and whether they could move back now. And so from about midday, as you said, there's that steady stream of Palestinians going north back to Gaza City, which had been the target of a massive Israeli offensive, and they are finding absolutely flattened neighborhoods as they arrive. But this is the first phase of the plan. The ceasefire is supposed to give some respite to the Palestinians. Aid agencies are on standby. They have lots of aid ready to go as soon as they get the go-ahead. It's unclear exactly when that will happen. The timetable isn't spelled out, but now that the Israelis have announced the ceasefire, that should move forward pretty quickly, and that is going to be not just food, but medicine and equipment in order to restore damaged infrastructure like water infrastructure and so on. And then, of course, now we are on the countdown to the release of all the Israeli hostages, at least all the living ones, and there will be some delay in terms of releasing the bodies because some of them are still buried under the rubble, but it's believed that most of the hostages can be returned by Monday.
All right, Barbara, thank you very much indeed. And let's go live to our North America correspondent, Nomia Iqbal, who's in Washington. And Nomia, we know that President Trump, who is the architect of this peace plan, is heading to the region, to Israel. What are his plans?
Yes, he'll be going on Sunday to Israel. He plans to address the Israeli parliament, and it will be somewhat of a victory lap for him. I think it's also an opportunity probably to try and put pressure on members of the Israeli government, certainly the far-right members who, despite phase one of this deal going through, are still very sceptical about a ceasefire. Mr. Trump, I imagine, will relish the opportunity to be in Israel. I mean, he often talks about how he's more popular in Israel, then the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Polls certainly suggest that, and Donald Trump has even said that to Mr. Netanyahu when he was here last week. And then he is expected to be in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, where there will be an official